Welcome
to our November meetup. Woo. I just want to take a moment, breathe, pause. November meetup. We've all been looking forward to this, especially myself. So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its updated report on August 9th, indicating that our future plans for life must include continued natural catastrophes, water insecurities, leading to further disparities between communities, and access to utilities for basic life. Furthermore, the UN writes that scientists are observing changes across the whole Earth's climate system, the atmosphere, the oceans, ice flows, and on land as well. November is National Native American Heritage Month. Here at the Mixed Space, we come together to connect and highlight what life looks like at the intersections of society. We uplift and give space to sideline voices and perspectives. And we knew that, like last November, our meetup this month just had to focus on the Indigenous perspective as well. Our purpose today is merely just to listen and learn, right? To digest ideas on how we as individuals can take a stand for what we care about and be leaders in manifesting our values in this world. Our meetups foster discussion in which we can share our experiences and exchange lifeways into a new future to be the ones we have been waiting for. In preparation for this meetup today, we asked ourselves, what is sustainability in 2021, right? What does that look like? And who can we turn to as we shift our relationship to the earth? There can be no climate justice without Indigenous leadership, period. So we decided to bring these questions to our speakers that join us today. Personally, as I said a little bit in my intro, my life has been forever altered by the Indigenous community that I have had the privilege of growing up with and being welcomed into. So to continue sharing these critical perspectives feels so necessary and meaningful personally to me that I am so grateful down to the bottom of my heart to share space with everyone on Zoom today, and just for us all to be here. So the last thing I will say, and this is a work in progress, so everyone bear with me and have patience, before the moment of silence that is coming up is actually to give the introduction of the name that was given to me and the intro that was taught to me by people that I get to call my family in Ojibwe. So Buju and Anjay Indigenous Cuz, and I'm so excited for this meetup. And Lily, take it away with our moment of silence.
Before we introduce our speakers, we like to take a moment of silence, a mindful moment, also to ground us in intention here as we begin our discussion. And today I would like our moment of silence to be centering the missing and murdered Indigenous women that are being silenced on a daily basis. And also an opportunity to honor our connection with Earth and with nature as we are about to get into discussion with our two fabulous speakers. So here's our moment of silence. Okay. Thank you very much for holding space. Ariel, do you want to do a group picture before we introduce our speakers?
I think so, because we have so many amazing, beautiful faces on Zoom.
I would love that.
Okay, so everyone, if you feel comfortable, I see some people already putting their camera on. This is just going to be momentarily. Everyone look cute. We're all here. We all showed up.
Everyone's inherently cute. Yes, Ravi in a car. I love that. Hi.
Hi, Lily. How are you?
Good. How are you? So glad to see you. Everyone's tuning in from everywhere. I love this.
And I think, Lily, if you'll count us down.
Okay.
We can all do a pose.
Yes, group chat moment, y'all. So I'm going to count us down 3, 2, 1, and then you pose like the show on Netflix, the amazing show on Netflix, and then we'll take a group shot and then we'll move on. So 3, 2, 1, pose. I love it. Okay. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have amazing speakers here with us today. They're bringing their own unique and nuanced perspectives to this conversation, and we are so grateful to have both of you here. Darvette Lefthand is an Indigenous activist, a model, and member of the Stoney Nakoda Sioux Nation. She's from Morley, a First Nation settlement in Alberta, Canada, and she's determined to make her reservation safer, and she does that through her work with a grassroots movement that is dedicated to eradicating drugs from the Stoney Nakoda Reserve. And her impact is felt through campaigning efforts for Indigenous and human rights. Darvette and her friend started their own grassroots movement for the reservation, and we're putting some links in the chat for y'all to learn more about Darvette now. Ariel.
Yes, so our next speaker is Carla Munoz. Ooh, Carla, I never asked you how to pronounce your last name. So please correct me if that was wrong. And we will figure it out. But she is an amazing tribal councilwoman and liaison for the Costanoan Rumsen Carmel Tribe. Also, please correct me if I pronounce that wrong. She's from the Bay Area and works very hard to create space for ceremonies, land restorations, and tribal recognition for her community. She is dedicated to restoring the traditional knowledge and bringing tangible culture to the summits, which again, to the tribal youth. One of the ways she accomplishes this is through the Ohlone Youth Summits, which again, there it is what we are fundraising for with this meetup, everyone. So please send your donations to help out that youth group. Please give a warm welcome to Darvette and Carla, everyone.
I know, right? Yeah, everyone's clapping. Yes. Yes. We will let Carla introduce herself, and we're going to pin Carla and Darvette so y'all can see them nice and clear, and then we'll take it away from there. So Carla, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us all about you?
Mishishtu, ka Inkara Carla Munoz, Gaha Costanoan Rumsen Carmel Tribe, Gaha Ohlone. I'm calling today from Serrano Gabrielino territory, but I actually reside in the village of Yalamu, which is Ramatouche Ohlone area, which is present-day San Francisco. Thank you for sharing this space with us and giving me this platform to kind of share a little bit of the work that I do and involvement that I have with my tribe and with my people. So I'm a tribal councilwoman of the Costanoan Rumsen Carmel Tribe is what our tribal name is. So we're people of the coast, and our people are from central coast of California. We are not federally recognized. We are state recognized though, but we still exercise our sovereignty today. I am part of a tribe, which we are 2,000 members that are relocated outside of our ancestral homeland to Southern California, where there's 2,000 of us that live here. And I am the one that won the cultural lottery in order to move back to my ancestral homeland, but not necessarily where I belong. My people's first village is in Monterey, Carmel area, and that's where we strive to come back and to reconnect there. Of course, the Ohlone territory goes from San Francisco down to Carmel and inwards towards Salinas Valley. So that area is very expensive to live in. It's also very important for the agriculture of the United States, and it's also important for the ports of the United States. So of course, they don't want to give us any land, so we don't have any reservations for people, let alone for my tribe in particular. But I grew up in ceremony, and that's what I try to do for my people now, is provide a space for them to have ceremony within park services and land trusts, which now most of our land is owned by those entities, or even national parks. So I do a lot of work with like the Presidio of San Francisco to bring back culture, but then also I really focus on my work with the youth. So I'm really excited for that work because growing up and understanding my double identity as cultural and also in this modern society, I understand the importance and value of it. And so I try to connect people to that space again and try to bring the youth back into that space. So I'm really honored to be here and to kind of talk a little bit about that, but more importantly, to be in this space with Darvette. Oh my gosh, the work that you do is so amazing. So thank you so much.
Oh gosh, thank you so much, Clara. It's been an honor working with you as well. And it's been really an honor getting to know you. All right, well, I guess I'll start by introducing myself. Well, first of all, thank you everyone for joining. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. My name is Darvette Lefthand. I am from the Stoney Nakoda Sioux Nation. My reservation is named Morley, and is located in Alberta, Canada. My reservation is traditionally known as Mini Snee. So my reservation is right next to the mountains, and the water just runs right through. I grew up on reservation my whole life. I've also lived in the city for a few years, and I can honestly say that living on reservation is a lot harder than living in the city. I would choose to resign in Morley due to the fact that it's my home. It's my people. I grew up here. The generations before me grew up here. My girls grew up here. And yeah, it's just a place where I just choose to resign. I feel at home a lot more than I did in the city. And right now I am alongside with my colleagues working on removing the drug pandemic from my reservation. And yeah, that is all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Darvette.
Thank you.
I'm interested. You said, the reservation is your home. You said that you live there, that your daughters live there, that you've kind of like your people are from there. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about, like the generations of folks living on the reservation and your ancestors living on the reservation and kind of what it's like for you to be part of that lineage.
Okay. Well, that is a wonderful question. Well, traditionally, my Nakota people are from the States, and I don't really know which part, but I do know that we are Nakota people, we are a part of the Lakota and Dakota Sioux Nation. So I'm guessing that's where we originated from, but I do know for a fact that the Stoney Nakoda and the Cree traveled from US all the way through Canada and the Rocky Mountains. And then we just we didn't really pick this area. It was just the reservation, the government picked it. So we kind of were forcefully having to move here and stay here. And we've kind of been here ever since. Right now, there are a couple other tribes in the area that we share the land with and the land acknowledgement with. And yeah, my ancestors have kind of always been living on reserve. Some do live in the city, yes. But honestly, most of us live on reserve. And yeah, we just, some leave, some stay, and some make the best of what they have here.
What's it like for you, Carla?
Wow. I don't have the pleasure of living in my actual reservation or what's allotted to us by the government, unfortunately. But we do have a strong connection to the land. We are very active in ceremony on the land. Me personally, I do a lot of gathering on the land. That was my goal moving to the Bay Area, was to connect to the Mother Earth in a more authentic way. I knew that we always had songs for the trees and songs for the water, but I was never able to sit under the shade of those trees or go to that water. And so it was very important for me to connect back to that land and, of course, soak up all that missing knowledge that was kind of taken for us. So my people and my particular tribe came down here in the late 1800s. They came over here to Southern California because the political climate was a lot safer. So in the Bay Area, there was a policy of extermination happening. And so it was unsafe for our family to really be there and connect. And so we moved down here, and now we've been going back ever since I was a child to make sure that we acknowledge those spaces and sacred places. And so I think that I'm very honored to be shown that cultural lifestyle. And I value it so much that we as a teaching believe in the seventh generation. And for us, that means that we're influenced by our mother and father, but we're also influenced by our grandparents and our great grandparents. And then we influence our children, our grandchildren, and our great grandchildren. And so as that influencer and as a responsibility, I think it's become my role in order to make space for those next generations so that they have a space that they can come to and value. Because unfortunately, right now, we have to fight for our space. There's a lot of our sacred lands are owned by park services and by land trusts and things like that. And so we have to work with them because we know now that they're the stewards of the lands, and we have to work with them alongside them in order to access those places so that we can have spaces for our youth to come and really have an authentic interaction with the land. And so we do a lot of land restoration in our territory. We do a lot of signage, acknowledgement, and cultural presentations. And so for me, it's very important to connect our people back to our homeland because we unfortunately do not live there. And so but we definitely made a space for us here, and we are thriving as a community. We still have a tribal office. We still offer so many different things and remedies to help our tribe connect back to culture. And so unfortunately, none of us live there. There's few tribal people that do still live in the Bay Area, but we also don't own any land, and they up there don't own any land that's theirs. I know a lot of them are allotted through land trusts. And so you have to work with government agencies. And so we're navigating this new world that's been colonialized. And unfortunately, I didn't have no idea of the interaction you would have to have in order to have ceremony or have a talking circle or even gather when the time is right. And so unfortunately, this time we have to kind of work alongside of these entities in order to have these spaces for us that we hold so sacred. And then also, I think that helps so that we learn with each other. They learn something from us, and then we learn their government policies.
I like the way that you, like the optimism, even though it might be like almost a little euphemistic, but that exchange between government policies and tribal traditions in a sense. But I'm wondering if there's anything that you might be willing to share in that exchange, and what that could look like, bringing folks into your lifeways essentially, and having to hold that space for folks who are essentially completely outsiders and whose daily life is living in complete opposition in a way to what it is that you're actually fighting for and what you actually deserve. And so, yeah, what does it look like to have to be facilitating that? Oh, you're muted, Carla. I'm so sorry.
I would say that it's really hard to get people to kind of understand the limitations. I think that people like to romanticize indigeneity and like to think that we all just run around in our regalia, we offer songs, and we live in this euphoria place. Unfortunately, we're real people, and we are not invisible, and we're still here. And so I would say, if you think about your impact every day as a human being, because that's what we are first. We're all human beings, and our first thing is to survive. And what we need to survive comes from our Mother Earth. She gives us everything that we need: food, medicine, shelter, for us to survive. And we just have to learn how to harmonize with that. We need to understand how to take and how to give back. And as Indigenous people, we learn that from generation to generation. There's stories of how to take care of these medicines that are outside of our door, or these shelters that we need in order to survive, and even to call in these animal spirits that we need, unfortunately. So it's a biosphere, and we all need to rely on each other. And so I think that what we as guests now need to understand is our impact. I think that one genocide that I say, because we suffered 3 cultural genocides here in California. The first was the Mission era. The second was the Rancho period, which was the Spanish Mexican or the Mexican American War. And then finally the Gold Rush. And all 3 of those contributed to the loss of culture of the land here and actually took us outside of our land and gave us this detachment where now we are no longer part of the land. And we as Indigenous people never understood land ownership or what that meant because we always knew it was borrowed from the next generation. So when all of these genocides came through and separated us from the land, now we have a different dependency. Now we are following a different way of life, but as Indigenous people, we adapt. We adapt to our surroundings and to these changes. And now I say that we're suffering from our 4th genocide, which is plastic. Plastic is coming through and sweeping our oceans, and it's taking away from our people. And that's something that even now during the pandemic is at an all-time sky rate because of the things being delivered to our homes. And I think that it's important that we understand our impact that we're making into our environment, because as Indigenous people, when you think of these great societies, you don't think of, well, great societies are measured in like pyramids and all of these great castles that have been left behind. But our people had a way of living in so much harmony with the environment that everything that we created was biodegradable. Everything was reused and repurposed in such a meaningful way that we had no waste. Everything went to great use and we had no reason to have trash. And I think that that marks a great society because we're able to live and sustain like that for hundreds of thousands of years. And so I would hope people would kind of understand the impact that we have every day and the influence that we have on the people around us. And I think that that's the number one thing that I connect to kids and that I connect to the outside communities is that we're all responsible for taking care of this planet for the next generation, and we all have a part to play in it. And if we all just take responsibility, I think that it makes it a lot better. So I hope I answered that question in a very roundabout way.
I think you did. And I actually I saw Darvette nodding a lot as you were speaking. And so I just want to give space because Darvette, what were you nodding, with Carla about? I'm wondering if what resonated with you just now in what she was saying. I'm wondering if you could give us also your perspective.
I did like everything that Carla said from, okay, so when she said that her people have already been through 3 genocides, I can relate to that as well, is because, we were moved around a lot before we settled here. And yeah, we were forcefully moved, which meant we did fight back. And, that lives were lost. And on the way here, journeying here too, I was told that lives were lost as well. So I consider that as like a form of genocide. They made us march. They didn't care. They just wanted to remove us from our traditional land and move us back onto the reservation. And the other part that I was nodding about was earlier when she said that she has to work with government terms and stuff. That's where I was like, oh yeah, I get that too. Yeah. I hope I answered your question.
You did. It's just resonating with me. And I'm speaking from my perspective looking in, right? Knowing what little I learned in school and what more I'm learning now, just like, I'm just voicing that it seems like frustrating that you have to work with people who took things away from you to get them back. I mean, I see people nodding on Zoom. It's just wild to me. And I just need to voice that it just blows my mind that we're here. Yeah, frustrating is an understatement. I can't use the words that I'm thinking of because we're on Zoom and that's not appropriate. But but it's frustrating to say the least. And I just actually I'm curious to know both from both of our speakers, sort of what has been the lessons in even dealing and coping with that kind of, I don't know, relationship or that kind of communication that you have. Like, how are you dealing with it in a way and in a sense? Like, what do your elders say? Like, what are your ancestors saying? Like, what are your parents or relatives say about this relationship now that has had to be formed, right? To have access to teachings that were taken away. I'm just curious as to how your community has responded to needing to have these communications in place.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, one of the first things is that, well, it would first be learning our rights as an Indigenous person, and then going from there. And also reservations, they all have different rules and legislation. Not all reservation has the same. And the way I've learned is that, how should I say this? Our traditions were passed down with oral and physical, and it was more of oral with me. I was told by my grandmother and grandpa on both sides of the family, and also my father and my mother. And at the same time, I was told that I don't know, how should I say this? Succeed in the modern world, try and learn the modern world. So for future generations, we can traditions and modern together. And that, I look at that as another form of cultural survival. And how should I say this? Basically, it's just, I don't know. I forgot my train of thought. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I like to rewind with that because I think that that's what our elders teach us a lot of times is how to walk in these two worlds. And I think for our people, we're relearning these systems because, you know, the creator and the earth told us when it was time to pray and when it was time to gather and when it was time to come and be social. And what now we're learning is that we're on a different time scale. We're on a different time clock. We're on the restrictions of the government's time on when they want to open up city parks or give us opportunities within our bubbles. And I think that if you're not actively asking questions or bumping into these roadblocks, then you won't learn what rights you actually have. And I think that something that my grandfather always taught me is we're born with our sovereign right to be here. No one can take that from us. No government, nobody can take that. And so for me, it makes it difficult because I want to be radical and I want to be frustrated and I want to walk into offices and be like, hey, I recognize me. But unfortunately, it's being part of a tribal council, now I have to be more mindful of my interaction with government agencies who want to continue to work with these entities. And it oftentimes feels like a tug and war. It seems to be always a give and take or something along those lines. Like it always seems like we have to bend in order to receive. And it's very frustrating at times, but I think that the more that we get these blocks and barriers, the more our elders remind us who we are and that we're purposed here for a reason. And then I think that we find our inner strength to succeed in these spaces and to go around these roadblocks in very creative spaces, because that's what we did as Indigenous people. We adapted always. And we know that in this day and age, we have to do that because of the limitations that we're put under. So we're very adaptive people. And we know now in order to succeed in this modern society, we have to start playing by their rules a little bit. And I say a little bit, because I'm a rule bender. I definitely bend a lot of rules, but I also adhere to most of them. But, you know, I try my best, but it's very hard to function in a modern society. And I don't know personally what it would be like to have my own reservation to be part of with my people, because we always constantly have to work with people in order to have spaces to be in together. And it always seems to be a challenge. And so unfortunately, like something that I learned firsthand, being an organizer for my community, with these like ceremonies and stuff, I never thought that you would have to get a fire permit. Like I never thought, like we have a fire, we all dance around a fire. I feel like it's been in so many novelties of Indigenous culture that we have fire and we respect it. And so we know fire's like electricity. If you don't know what you're doing with it, you're going to get burned. But if you know how to harness it and respect it, it can cook food, keep you warm, and we can party all night long around it. And so for us to have that, it's like natural. And for me, creating these ceremonial spaces, it's an essential. But unfortunately, here in California, they're scared of fire. There's been this wide range of fire suppression here. And so we have to fight government agencies and state policies in order for us to even have a fire that we know how to take care of for hundreds of thousands of years. And we continue even now to have a relationship with that fire ceremonially for the last, I would say, 36 years. And since it's become legal to practice our ceremonies and traditions. And so I think that those kind of things people don't talk about, and our histories that we have been kind of hidden from us a little bit because of the pain associated with them. And so as we relearn why we are in these spaces, and we have to relearn this whole way of interacting in these new spaces. And I think that that's kind of our struggle. But girl, you're doing a great job. I just want to tell you, because what you're doing is way more crazier than what I would ever want to do.
No, honestly, I wanted to say that about you too. Is like I've learned the hard way that not all Indigenous people have reservations, and that to me was very, very surprising, because I was like, wait a minute, whoa. And the thing about reservations and non-reservations is when you live on reservations, you become restricted. And living on the res, I have heard many people say, let's not be a res anymore. Maybe we can get more opportunities out here. And then there's the ones that don't have reservations that want reservations. So there's that divide. And honestly, in my opinion, keeping the reservation as a reservation would probably our not only way to survive, but one of the ways we can, because that land was traditionally given to us and we were put there. And with that, we can, practice and this and that, but also that is restricted as well. With the fire you just mentioned, same here in Canada, we can't really, there's a fire ban. And we can't have any powwow gatherings, round dance gatherings. We can't do that due to the fact that it's restricted. It can only be done during the summer. And that is, it's not really, doesn't really sit right with me. That's government laws, but we have to, I guess, go along with them. And yeah, that's pretty much. But everything.
We actually have a
so
question.
Far,
Oh, I'm so sorry that I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Because we have a question that goes right to that. Like, is seeking, you're saying it's not sitting right with you, is seeking permits allowing the colonists to take jurisdiction? So she's saying, or this person is saying, in Colorado, some don't ask. Let them know we are going to have a lodge, assert that sovereignty, and educate every chance we get. So I guess the question is like, is in the moment of seeking the permit, is that allowing the colonists to take jurisdiction?
Yes, but unfortunately, I mean, these laws have been in place in order to make us lawbreakers. So they want us to go and trespass into spaces. They want us to, quote unquote, illegal harvest cultural resources that they're protecting on federal land or properties. And yeah, these are spaces to educate. But unfortunately, me personally, I'm a gatherer, and the earth tells me when it's time to gather. And I never knew what a gathering permit was. What the heck is that? The creator tells me, and that's it. So now I understood, because apparently when I gather my shells, and in certain times of year that we gather shells, I got the opportunity to sell my collection in the Carmel Mission gift shop. And one of the tribal liaisons that works in state parks told me, do you have a gathering permit to get those shells? Because you're not supposed to sell them. And I'm like, well, I'm selling a reinterpretation of my art and a representation of my culture. I'm not necessarily selling relics, or selling live specimens. So I didn't understand that. And she said, oh, well, you should just apply for a gathering permit. So I got this paper from state parks, and it was so hilarious because it asks the most randomest questions. Like, first they want to know the location, the locality of where you're going to gather. Then they want to know the locality within that in which you're going to gather. Then they want to know quantity. They would like to know how you're going to gather. And then they would like for you to show them what you're gathering. And to me, that's a whole bunch of BS. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Okay, so I thought about, I have to play devil's advocate, right? They want me to fill out a gathering permit. They want to know all these specific questions. Well, let me answer it to the best of my ability. So the first thing I said was, when it said, where would you like to gather? I said within Rumsen speaking territory, because that's broad. That could be anywhere. That's anywhere where I would like to gather in Rumsen speaking territory, right? Then it's the location in which you would like to gather, the locality. And I say, where cultural resources available? Because I'm not going to gather anywhere else. Where else am I going to gather, right? Then it says, how are you going to gather? How are you going to gather? And I said, with respect to the Mother Earth and to instill these cultural resources for the next 7 generations to come. And I also said, and with permission of the local plant life and animal species, right? Because that's more important to me. That was way more important to me than anything else these people are doing. And as far as quantity, I put enough to not disturb the other inhabitants. I mean, duh, what do you mean? And so I feel like I got creative, and I felt like I was on Family Feud where they're like, good answer, right? Like, because you got to play the field, I feel. And I think there's a way to do it with class. I don't want to be raging war on people. But I want them to also understand how ridiculous they're being, and what restraints they're putting on us that are really dumb. Like, are you really listening to yourself? Are you really wanting to give a gathering permit to an Indigenous woman? Like, I don't understand. And why would it not just be like, duh, here you go. Here's your certification. Like, there should be no questions asked. As long as you know your identity, like, coffee is coffee, no matter how much cream you put in it. And so I feel like, that being said, that should come with a lot of other things. And unfortunately, we have to fight for all of those other things. And if you are part of a reservation, you are definitely like now fighting for yourself and your own res. And when you're outside of that reservation, you are just fighting to exist. And I feel like that is like very hard. And I always envied the reservation life, because I'm like, oh, those people get to live on their life. But then after you're cut off from things the government can provide for you, like convenience stores and gasoline and water and all of these things that you as a tribe now have to come up with, it becomes very heavy on your shoulders. And so I don't envy you, but I do envy you, because I do want to be in those spaces, and I want to have those problems, because I'm tired of having these opposite problems, but everyone struggles in their own kind of way.
Carla, they do.
Carla is dropping some gems. I do just want to quickly say, I know some people are coming in and going out and coming back in. So I do just want to say, if anyone wants to rewatch this conversation, this meetup actually is recorded and shared on YouTube. So we will soon go to our breakout rooms, which are not recorded. But we've been getting a bunch of amazing questions in the chat, and I know that we have some hands raised. So I did just want to say, if anyone wants to rewatch this and hear all of the gems that Darvette and Carla are dropping, you can. It'll be on YouTube later. But let's get into some of these Q&As, and I have a quote that Carla gave us that I want to come back to. So all of that is good stuff. Lily, I think you've been tracking all these amazing questions, and
I have them all here, but actually I want to just let Sandra, who has her hand raised, just let her ask her question. I hope I'm using pronouns that are correct, but please go ahead, Sandra. Yeah.
Oh, actually, it's not a question. I'm an Indian educator of 45 years. And the one thing I'd like to mention to Carla is that one thing she's dealing with is you're dealing with the people with a different worldview. And we have to remember that. And all of us, when we're dealing with all this bureaucracy, we shouldn't go into it as like a battle. We should go into it as we're teaching. So if we're teaching our ways to these people that don't comprehend, the environmental knowledge that we have, that our ancestors have, if they don't comprehend, how we view relationships with the earth and all this, the balance, that is so necessary. If we have to go in as look at it as we're teachers, we're warriors of truth, is what I say, so that we are here to teach them what they don't know. And if you actually look at the time that we're in right now, we're in the time of truth and healing. There's videos on the YouTube from Floyd Westerman, who even talked about how we're so related to the tree, and how there would be a time when the world would see America dying from within. And we are in that time right now, because if you look at the statistics, even at the rates of suicide, in 2018, there was 47,000 Americans that committed suicide. Only half that number of people died by homicide. So twice as many people are dying by their own hand. So, I mean, how much more can we say that, this is us dying from within? And so that's why this time of truth and healing is so perfect timing right now, because we are also in an age of collaboration where we need to start, more and more. You can see it all over America, all different kinds of tribes, tribal organizations working with these other groups, even with, like you were talking about, the fire. I did my master's thesis on tribal forest management, and it talked about how California had that 100-year ban on fire because they didn't understand it. They didn't understand, the controlled burns. And now in Washington State, they have what's called anchor forests, where they're actually recognizing, landholders are actually recognizing that the forest doesn't understand boundaries. It's wild, it's natural. And so there's people working together to try to minimize all these big fires by going back to traditional ways. And they're actually working with tribes that border forest lands. So, I mean, there's no way we would have thought that was going to happen 60 years ago. So we have to look at all the positives. And yes, it's completely slow. Believe me. I mean, I was in the longest walk in 78 from Sacramento when I was going to college there. And so many of the things that we protested for, it's like we're still protesting. But yet you have to take each little step that we've made in a progression and try to look at all the positive. Because if we just keep looking at the negative, we'll get overwhelmed.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
That's my take on this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Thank you, Sandra.
Amen. And speaking of these tragedies, we actually did have a question for Darvette about the drug epidemic. So the question for Darvette was, what does removing drugs from your community look like in the long run? I'm wondering how much support is given and what it looks like. So Darvette, if you could sort of go into that, we had a question for you, and we'll start there, and then we'll go through some more of these questions. Oh, you're muted.
Are you on mute? Yeah.
Okay, sorry. But one of the ways that we're actually, one of the long runs that our plan is to, how should I say this? By removing the drug dealers and the drugs that they distribute off the reservations, there won't be, how should I say this? There won't be any more distribution, yes. So there might be a problem where people might try and go off reserve, or they would stay on reserve. But as of right now, we have support from the community, and that we do have a lot of support from the community. And oh geez, I lost my train of thought. Ariel, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, totally. So just what does removing drugs from your community look like in the long run?
Or maybe even just right now, like, what does it look like on a daily basis? Like, tell us more about what your organization is doing and what you're implementing to help remove drugs from the reservation.
Well, not going into too much detail because we're still in the works of in the middle of it all. But as we're saying is, removing these drugs, it will give them a sense of not sobriety, but a chance to wake up and say, okay, this is not the life I want anymore, and I do need help. And we were thinking of the progress of removing the drugs and then creating a safe place for those people who are affected by the drugs and their family members. and also getting them and trying to get them back on the road to recovery, but also from the road to recovery back to modern society and thriving and living in a modern society without drugs and alcohol.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this actually just brings me to this quote that Carla had given us in one of our original conversations. And then I think we have a question for Carla. But Darvette, going kind of off of what you said, this is a quote that I'm going to read directly. So it's not just about educating the public. It's also about educating our youth back to what's sacred to us and give them another alternative, because where we are from now, drugs, alcohol, gang violence is super rampant. And it's easier to choose those outlets than it is to choose ceremony and culture. And so it's my job not only to make that attainable for everyone, but also interesting and exciting to make you want to be here and not be forced. And that's just a quote that like really resonates with me as we're talking about, you know, the drugs on the reservation, as we're talking about culture and ceremony. And as we're continuing this conversation, I'm thinking about even sustainability, right? And how that can tie into this conversation that we're having. So I think Lily, we have another question. So why don't we go to that question?
About the recent land back. So how does the recent land back success of the Esselen I hope I'm saying it right, Esselen in Big Sur give you any hope for momentum in the favor of your tribe's own fight for space?
Oh man, that's so loaded. Let me put on my hat here. Okay, so I feel, and this is, if you look at any research of the land that they did give back, if you really research the land itself, it is sacred. Don't get me wrong. It's sacred to our people. It's in shared territory of the Rumsen and Esselen people. It's in Serentaruk, and Rook is home in Rumsen. So obviously there's a tie there. It's off the coast of Carmel, and Esselen territory starts in Big Sur River area, and this is before the Little Sur River, like right on the Little Sur River. So we know it was a shared territory, and so this tribe that received it, it's right next to our Creation Mountain. Why not give us the Creation Mountain? Why do we have the mountain next to it? Why not the Creation Mountain, right? And that's within Esselen territory. But if you research this land and you hear about it, it is needing a lot of construction, a lot of new roads put in. It's deteriorating because of the conditions of the weather happening there. And so the government didn't want to put a lot of money into refurbishing it and opening it up once again to what it was. So what did they do? They gave it back to the Indians. And they said, here you go. Here's your problem now. Good luck. And so now the Esselens are really trying to figure out how to manage that land in a very respectful way, how to understand the seasons, the animals that live there in order to cohabitate with them. And so we went back as our tribe to help them honor, because in our territory, we're the tribal dancers. So we went to go pray for them on this new land, and they opened up their arms to us and said, now this is a place where we can come, and this is a place that's ours, and that we're going to share, and that we're hopefully going to have so many beautiful ceremonies in the future. But that sounds great. But unfortunately, now we have to wait until after they survey the land, they repair the roads and all of these things. That's going to take time, energy, and money. So the hope was there. Yeah, it sounds really good to have land, but what land are they giving you back? What do you have to invest into that land in order for you to create that space? And so I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful, because there's a lot of partnerships that are helping the Esselen tribe of Monterey. And so God bless them and congratulate them for receiving that and opening it up to all of us. It's a blessing for us. I'm waiting for our reprimands. That would be so great to have our own land as well and receive that. But I'm not hopeful in that manner that we'll ever own anything. We'll never own anything. We don't believe in owning anything, but I definitely would like a lot more access to spaces, because I know that my community of 2,000 members is not all going to be able to live on the land one day. It's going to take time. It's going to take connections. It's going to take, a lot of acknowledgement to our people. And I think that we're still so far away from that. And given the fact that now we are in Southern California and we're away from our ceremonial lands, we've lost that cultural connection, and we have to regain that for our people. And I think that that's like my job now, is to reteach that interaction with the land, because we've long forgotten it, because it's been forcefully taken from us. And so now, as a cultural educator, I reinforce those relationships to the land, and hopefully in the future, we will have land back. But I'm even for the movement of land back, water back, ceremony back, culture back, communities back. To me, it's about having respect for one another and for the earth. And so every back that we can have, we want them all back. We need to hashtag everything back. So land back, I don't think is ever really going to happen for us in the future, because our land is really, really valuable, and it always comes with strings attached. So, but I definitely am hoping for an easier, coexistence between our tribal peoples and need for the land, and it being of public use.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you for everything. I feel like hashtag everything back is like my favorite thing. And I'm seeing some amazing resources come in the chat. I'm seeing Therese Therese talk about sign language back, that there was a use of sign language and Indigenous sign language before there was contact. Darvette, there's a bunch of questions coming in around the work that you're doing. I also just want to highlight something that Aaron said that really hit for me. It's like, he said, being removed from things we're addicted to gives us a fighting chance to see what we've been missing. And so that brings me to this question, Darvette, can you share, are there any recovery meetings on the res? This person is personally in recovery, and would like to help in any small way if there's a need. So also just naming what I'm seeing here is that, Darvette, you just sharing about the work that you're doing is allowing other people to open up and feel seen and be part of that recovery. So please let us know, are there recovery meetings on the res? Are you on mute, Darvette?
I'm so sorry. I got to learn to turn that on. First, I wanted to say was, the road to recovery is going to be, it seems very, very hard, and like it's a never ending, but I promise you will get there. You will survive. One day you're going to be living without whatever you're addicted to, and it's going to be the most beautiful feeling in the world. I know that for a fact. And then back to the question was, not at the moment, no. But we were trying to get that up and going. It's just the only problem we have is with space, limited space, and the fact that our people are with us, but it's our own chief and council system that are not with us. And that is the part that makes it harder for us as a grassroots movement. We have the support of the people, but not the main. And we have tried in the past to get meetings and spreading awareness. Like even we tried to do an online, and we were completely shut down. Like, no, we were met with many different, I guess you would say, restrictions, and I don't know how to say this. I guess the stuff they asked us to do first before they would listen to us. And that's the part that makes on our side a lot more difficult. But for a fact is, yes, people have been asking, and that we are in the mix of everything, trying to get everything up and going. I hope I answered your question properly.
Yeah. And in the work that you do, is it all being done by the folks from your tribe, or is there any collaboration with people outside of the community? And this person says they wonder because they're a social worker in public health and they're trying to get non-Native people to help decrease the disparities for Native folks in the US, but it's hard to get them to even understand what the disparities or the issues are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's a really good question, actually. Well, we have some support from outside communities as well. Like the neighboring reservations are on board with us, and we do go out to the next cities, the neighboring cities, and to support drug rallies and these walks. And we have actually made some very great friends just by attending those. We are right now, not right now, but we were in the mix with working with a group. They are called the Sober Group Calgary, and they are dedicated to, they're a part of our nation. They are a part of Morley, but they just live in the city. So they're not like, they just live in the city, and they're working over there too. They go around and give meals to the homeless and offer any help that they can to the people who are affected. And yes, we do work with them. We have tried to collab with others, but seems not really much. We are a grassroots movement, and they kind of back out when we tell them that we don't have support from our chief council system. That's when they seem to like, okay, but we do have the support of our community for sure.
I keep hearing this, not having support from your chief of council system. I feel like this is a whole other conversation that I would really love to be a part of, like knowing you're on the res and your own chief and your own like council infrastructure isn't necessarily supporting key issues that you're working towards to bring more health and bring more vitality to the people on the reservation. It just is enraging to hear that. We're going to ask one more question before we give folks chances to talk to each other and to keep sharing with each other. So I want to ask the question about actually, there was this other great question that I wanted to ask about. Let me try to find it again.
Well, I was going to say,
yes.
No, go on. I was going to fill space if you couldn't find the question.
Thanks, Ariel. But how can we work better to strengthen nation-to-nation relationships? And I feel like both Carla and Darvette can answer that to whatever is coming up for them.
Okay, so nation to nation, are you talking about First Nations, or none? Okay.
That's what I think. That's what I think the person is asking. And if you're still on, whoever's question that is, please feel free to take yourself off mute if you want to ask the question more specifically.
Yeah, what I was thinking of is nation to nation between like tribal nations and like the United States or Canada, and respecting that sovereignty.
Also want to name South America and Mexico and all the indigenous folks that are living there and that are from there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, that's a great question, actually. Well, one of the things that we like to do is support, whether that's physical or, over social media. And that was one of the reasons why, that is one of the reasons what I like, is that we can support each other, long distance, short distance. But then the neighboring communities, yes, they do support. We don't necessarily, how should I say this? We show support to each other every single way we can. And that kind of strengthen our relationship from nation to nation. And also considering the fact that Alberta and the land that I am on right now is shared by 4 or 5 major different tribes, including mine. And so we kind of have to coexist and help each other. And that's pretty much what we are kind of known to do. So I hope I answered your question properly. I am so sorry.
And then I would like to add to that the nation to nation thing. We recently experienced that with this groundbreaking trial that's happening with the Apache Stronghold. So the Apache Stronghold is fighting for their sacred lands right now, and they are trying to mine them. The government is. And so they are having the spiritual convoy that took them from their reservation all the way up to San Francisco to go to trial. And who was leading the spiritual convoy was one of their spiritual leaders, who was Winsler Nosey. And he went, and his thing was to say, I want to gather prayers from all those who pray, not just nation to nation as far as Indigenous communities to Indigenous communities, but other places of prayer, like in the Muslim community and Buddhist temples, within Christianity structures of worship. They went to talk about what it meant to them and their spirituality to be connected to this place. And so it was a spiritual convoy that I got to participate in two different ways. Because my people were from Southern California, they held a ceremony in Malibu at a very sacred site of the Tongva, Hashem, and Gabrielino people. And they hosted a ceremony where people got to give their prayer and their understanding of their struggle and support in that way. And it just really reminded me of times that we would have had as Indigenous communities in the past, where if one community was struggling, they would reach out to other Indigenous communities and we would host them in a good manner, and there would be trade and festival involved. And that was exactly what that was. And when they went to our territory in San Francisco, since I lived there, I was able to host a dinner for them and offer them prayers while they were here for the 3 days that they were in town. And so that was really great to do that for an outside community and to understand that we're very similar in the fact that we are fighting for our sacred ways and for our life ways of our people, but we're also Acorn people. We have Acorn over here, they have Acorn over there, and that's what sustains life for them and sustains life for us. And it connects us in so many ways. And food in general is the connection that we have. And it's like the most sacred connection that we not only have to each other, but to our Mother Earth and what she has to offer. And so it was really nice to have and host those other nations. And I think any way that you can support other communities in any sort of fashion, you really have to go to those communities and hear their needs. And you really have to go to those communities and hear, how can I help? Because I think that that's what ensures a healthy relationship, and support the local communities and any of their causes. And the more that you support these local communities, the more that you're able to help them succeed. And I think that that's something, like, I hate to be a shameless plug right now, but I do want to say that by supporting the Ohlone Youth Summit, that's actually giving our tribal youth another option. And it's actually supporting us to connect back to our ancestral homelands. And so it was a great honor to have it not only be doubled. So anything you donate now, they're matching. And I think that that even is way more impactful for you to make a difference now in our community, because for us, it's hard to fundraise all the time to get our kids back up to the land. But it might be easy for you just to dig a little deeper in your pockets and give at this time, because we're going to double it. And that would be so cool. And it would mean so much to all the youth to experience the land in a new way and to have tangible culture. And I think that that's how you can be a good ally. That's how you can be a good neighbor, is to understand the needs of communities and help them. And then also understand the land that you're on, the land that everybody put in the chat that said, where you are. You now have a responsibility to that land to not trash it. So if you see trash, pick it up, because now you're the original stewards of those landscapes. And so it's up to you to do that. And there's a wonderful organization, Natives for Nature. If you follow them, they do a lot of local cleanups in the LA area. And it was really inspiring for me as an Indigenous woman to hear how other Native groups are inspiring others to contribute. And so Native for Nature on Instagram organizes not only cleanups, but also hikes so that you can enjoy these spaces too. And so I think that I took from the founder of that organization to understand that that's a good way to be an ally in the space that you are now, is to go clean up a trail or go clean up around your home. And that's what you can do not only for yourself, but for your environment and for these lands, and to start off on a respectful foot and to acknowledge those people that have been putting their prayers into those lands for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yes, Carla, yes. So for those of you who don't know, our meetups are donation based. Like we don't take, obviously none of you paid anything to be here today. It's free. It's open to anyone who wants to be here and share space with us. But what does happen at our meetups and within the month of our meetups is that we, the mixed space, double any kind of donation that come in, and we give it to an organization who is perpetuating and supporting the mission of the theme of our meetup here. So thank you so much, Carla, for saying all of that, what you said. And we're about to post a video in the chat now about the Ohlone Youth Summit, which is who we're donating to today. And yeah, it's exactly like you said. I love all the layers. It's like donating, it's protesting, it's showing up, it's reading, it's conversating, it's supporting. And there's no hierarchy. It's all of that. It's like, that's what it takes on a consistent basis for all of us. It's being an ally to the to the communities that we might not identify as being a part of, but we know that we're all connected in that way. We're all sharing Earth, the planet. So, yeah, I mean, I really just appreciate what you were saying, all the different ways that we can show up for one another, and we can show up for the land, and we can show up for ourselves, essentially, is what we're really doing, and holding ourselves accountable to the world that we want to live in.
Ooh. I did also want to add something that, I just thought of right now, but it's, our Ohlone Youth Summit is really important to our tribe because alongside of the work that Darvette does, drugs have affected our communities, and they have stripping children away from their parents. And if they are proven to be part of our tribe, they now become property of our tribe. And it becomes our responsibility to give them other outlets and to give them space to not only be themselves, but to also understand that it's okay and that we're here for them in whatever support we can. And so our Ohlone Youth Summit has always been about our families. It's always been about the children. And so those families that are affected by it now have another option. And so some of those families that were, I would say temporarily dismantled, but now are coming back, are trying to understand how to relearn each other and forgive each other. And I think providing the space of having a youth summit to connect back to culture really kind of puts everybody at the same level and really gives back more, because you're creating experiences with your family and with your children, essentially. And so for us and our people, having the Ohlone Youth Summit is giving so much and giving another option for our youth, because it's giving us another time to come together. So any way that you can support, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it.
We put the PayPal link for the mixed space in the chat. And if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out in the chat. Feel free to reach out to us on Instagram, over email. So we're always available and open for questions and for feedback and all of that. So I think it's time to transition, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it is time. I will just say really quickly, a lot of the stuff coming in the chat, up in the chat, has been about recovery. And it's like so incredible to read, like all the support that instantly got offered. And I just, it's always great to see other community members start to come out and support. I do want to say that every month we also do a Meetup 2.0. So it'll be on Instagram Live, and it kind of is just a continuation of this conversation. If anyone would be interested in talking about recovery that has an Indigenous identity, message me. I'd love to go on Instagram Live with you and chat. And without further ado, let's go out to breakout rooms, Lily. You'll see a button that says annotate. It will be best to select the text feature, and you can add your contribution and then close out of the annotate feature to let others contribute as well, because only 10 can annotate at a time. But I think some people are starting to already annotate, but once again, that is going to be at the top of your screen. And it says view options. You hit annotate, text option. There you go. Hola. Hey, see you. There we go. Yeah, just drop it and then also just close out of it so other people can annotate. But here we go. People are already doing it. Look at all these gems. You can also drop it in the chat and we can put it in ourselves if the annotate feature is like a little stressful for you. I feel you. We got you covered.
Yeah, so this is an opportunity, like you're saying, Ariel, to just come out of our breakout rooms and just for ourselves reflect on the whole meetup. Like, what were some of the quotes that were named, some of the things that you learned today, maybe something that you want to commit to personally. I love these drawings. Oh my gosh, a turtle. Or a pledge that you want to make, thinking about what Carla was mentioning, maybe finding a local group that hosts cleanups in your areas and committing to doing one cleanup a month for the next 3 months. What is it that you are willing to sacrifice or willing to give up in order to make sure that you're facilitating land back, water back, sovereign rights back? Not that they can ever be taken away, but yeah, we are born with our sovereign right to be here, to live. I love this. We are now the caretakers of the land where we live, right? I learned so much and appreciate all of you. We appreciate you too. Reclaim your culture, absolutely safe space. Coffee is coffee, no matter how much milk or cream. Yes. Something that I shared that someone said in the breakout room, that living simply and living locally is the ancient way and it reduces our carbon footprint. And for me, that just like really hit home and is a really big topic for me personally. As I live in New York, I live on Turtle Island. And it's a really, it's a big conversation for me. It's like, how do I participate in food co-ops? Where am I getting my produce from? What are the skills that I can be learning, that will facilitate survival? How do I know how to, harvest acorns? All of that. Thank you, everyone, dropping your chat. Yeah, Darvette, you can't write at the moment. Maybe there's 10 people that are already annotating, because right now there's a max of 10 people. So there might be 10 people writing at the same time. It says your work is inspiring. #landback, healing with the ecosystem. Ooh, that's a great one.
That is wonderful. Yes.
I also want to invite. Ooh,
look at that. Sorry, just look at that. Look at this art.
I know.
I'm getting so excited. And the turtle. I was like in the chat. I just saw the turtle. Look at this. Wow.
I want to also facilitate y'all through a group exercise if you're interested. So pull out your phones, pull out your Instagram, and go on the Mixed Space and go on the Mixed Space story. And on the Mixed Space story, you will see this learning form. We're also putting it in the chat for all of you who can just like download the picture from your chat. But when you go on the Mixed Space, you'll see the learning story, and then you can, thank you. You screenshot it. And then once you've screenshotted it, you fill it out. I know it sounds like a lot of steps, but it's actually super easy. And it gives you an opportunity to say what you've learned. And then when you fill it out, you tag the Mixed Space, and then we'll share it so we can amplify our learning. This is something that's really important to me personally, is just like having one sentence of this is what I learned. For example, I learned, and I'm going to have to find exactly, one of our, someone awesome shared this earlier. They said they got a master's degree in Indigenous forestation. I'm totally messing it up. If you're still here, please correct me. Might have been Rachel Lee, actually. It might have been.
It was me.
Was it?
Yeah.
What was your master's degree?
Tribal forest management.
Tribal forest management. I had no idea that is a master's degree. That's a learning for me today.
Well, I see what I actually did it interdisciplinary, a master's for interdisciplinary studies. So between environmental studies, Native American studies, and curriculum development. So I actually did three theses. I did one on the tribal forest management for environmental studies. Then I did a whole curriculum for teachers to train them the history of the boarding schools. And within that, I also included some of the forestry things because I try to do a holistic approach. So I want to bring in all the things that affect us. So that I had to bring an environment into looking at education. So,
wow. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
I just think it's so interesting. It's like, you don't know what's out there until you meet someone who's been through it. And then you're like, wow, there's
right.
There's so much academia. I think because academia isn't everything. It doesn't, it doesn't make it more valid than other things, but it's really refreshing to know that there is academia out there, because I think that people try to invalidate the work that's happening, especially grassroots work, but knowing that there's academia, it just is another support.
Right. But the thing that was interesting to me was just being able to go back through so many tribal records and videos that I found from elders who were talking about the environment. It just gave me so much insight into how they looked at things and how simple it really is.
Wow. This art is beautiful. The fire, this is beautiful. The heart, the acorn. Oh my goodness. Everything back. Yes. Yes.
A reminder also that as y'all are filling out, hopefully, I hope, our feedback form on Instagram, you can drop your socials in the chat.
And then there's also another feedback form that we would love for you to fill out. I know I'm getting needy here at the end of our meetup, but we have a survey link that we give for folks to just fill out what your thoughts were on the meetup, if there's ideas for changes, if you have ideas for topics for meetup in the future. So I just dropped the link in the chat. Please it's like 2 minutes. It's really short, but fill out the meetup feedback form. It means the world to us to get feedback from you on your experience with us today. And yeah, exactly. Keep following. Yep. Lily, personally, my socials are in the chat. Absolutely. I'm totally available for folks to reach out. I want to hear your pledges or your commitments if they're not on the whiteboard yet. And one last announcement. Ariel, do you want to announce the December meetup, or should I?
Go for it, Lily.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited because one last announcement that I want to make, and I just want to plug our meetup for next month. The website to sign up for our December meetup will be put in the chat also momentarily, but it's religiously mixed. We're talking about interfaith relationships. We're talking about folks who are navigating multiple religious and spiritual environments. And I would just love for all of you who feel like this space is something that you want to keep participating in to be able to sign up for or RSVP for our December meetup while you're here, and just keep the community going, keep the conversation going. And that's all that you're going to hear from me on housekeeping, I promise.
I love this art. Look at that acorn.
I know, it's so beautiful, like actual real talented
Turtle.
whiteboard artists here. I just also want to say thank you so much, Darvette and Carla, for all of your gems that you've shared tonight with us, and for the wisdom and the insight and the leadership and the vulnerability that you have brought to this meetup here today. It means a lot to me, and I look up to both of you, and I really appreciated that I've been able to share space with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And I am very sorry to everyone that this is my very first time publicly speaking outside my community. And it was very nerve-wracking, but because of you guys, I was able to, let loose and get some stuff out. And I really hope that I was very informative. And if I was not, I am totally sorry.
Darvette, sexy, not sorry. Sexy,
Yes,
sexy, aren't you?
sexy.
Or you're sassy. No, sorry.
Oh, yes, definitely sassy.
Definitely sassy. Period. Okay. I love it. And also, not to we'll just add more to everyone. If anyone wants to collaborate with the mixed space, right? You saw, You said, oh my gosh, I have this idea. I would love to share my story. Let's make it happen. Please email us at contact@themixspace.com. We're going to drop that in the chat as well.
Or reach out over DMs.
Or reach out over DMs. You could DM Lily or me, but preferably the mixed space, but any of us really.
Preferably the mixed space.
Preferably the mixed space. But yeah, let's collab. We always are looking for more people to collaborate with in any way possible.
Yeah,
Also,
so some of the, yep, sorry.
No, I mean, sexy, sassy. If anyone wants to be featured as a member spotlight, DM us. Are you working on a project upcoming? Do you feel like you've been to enough mixed space events where you kind of want to talk about yourself in a positive way? Let us know.
Yeah, thank you so much, TMS Tech Support. You're already sharing it. So some of the most specific ways that we can collaborate is on a meetup topic. If there is something that you feel really passionate about, a social justice conversation that you would love for the mixed space to facilitate, absolutely reach out to us. Another great way for us to collaborate is if you have if you want to write a guest blog. We're always interested in hosting other people's voices and in giving folks space to share their story or share their experience. So for any of you who have any piece of writing that you'd like to submit to the mixed space, you will find the opportunity to be a guest blogger on our website. Additionally, we host Meetup 2.0s on Instagram Live. We host Clubhouse rooms. We host conversations on our Facebook group. We are open to any new ideas that we haven't named yet. Raising Indigenous children. Yes. So
that would be fun to talk about.
Yeah. And our next meetup in December, thank you so much, TMS Tech Support, is Religiously Mixed. And it's about, all the different ways that folks are navigating, especially the holiday season, with their religious faith, their spiritual faith, or actually not being faith-based at all, being agnostic, or being atheist. Maybe you're someone who doesn't believe at all and actually doesn't care about the holidays, and you want a space to talk about that and what you think happens when you pass. There's space for a bunch of different, we've met a lot of people who've grown up in households where parents are speaking different languages and have different religious backgrounds, reading different scriptures, for example. So that is the intersectional conversation that we are hosting next month.
Wow.
And I just want to thank everyone for sharing space with me and allowing me this platform to kind of talk a little bit about my tribe and my struggle, because not every day do we get to, vocalize what we're doing. They always want us for the song or for the dance. They never want us for the struggle. And so I really appreciate the mixed space for allowing us to have this opportunity to share and hopefully inspire others and to look deep inside yourself and see how you're being a good human being in this world. So thank you so much for sharing space. Shururu, which means blessings and thanks, and Ka'awame Karuai means I'll see y'all later. Thank you for all the follows. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so at this point, this is when the meetup officially ends, which is kind of where our official academic facilitator hats can kind of be taken off, and we can let our proverbial hair down for those of you who have hair to let down. But this is where we end, and we're just going to leave our Zoom open to chill, to hang out, to keep talking and sharing space. So if anyone wants to, take yourself off mute and turn on your camera and maybe ask a question that hasn't been answered yet, or want to get to know the mixed space on a more personal level, or need the PayPal link to spend some extra dollars at the meetup so that we can double your donations and go support Ohlone youth. All of that is possible.